The massive conference hall gleamed with polished metal surfaces and holographic displays that shifted like liquid light. Delegates from across the galaxy sat in their assigned seats, their bodies a strange mix of organic and mechanical parts. Some looked like walking crystals, others like clouds trapped in humanoid shapes, and a few resembled ancient mechanical constructs with pulsing energy cores. At the center of the hall, Earth's small delegation looked out of place. They were ordinary humans dressed in simple diplomatic uniforms. No extra limbs, no visible technological enhancements, just plain flesh and blood. Among them stood Sergeant David Park, a U.S. Marine with a quiet demeanor and eyes that seemed to take in every detail of the room. Ambassador Hyun-Ki from the Stellar Concordance stepped forward. His body was a marvel of alien engineering, a being made of shifting blue energy contained within a transparent exoskeleton. When he spoke, his voice echoed through translation devices, filling the hall with a cold, mechanical tone. "Delegates of the Galactic Confederation," he began, "we are here to discuss the potential integration of the human species into our advanced galactic community." His words dripped with barely hidden condescension. Several alien delegates shifted in their seats, some letting out sounds that might have been laughs or electronic chirps. The holographic display behind Hyun-Ki flickered to life, showing images of Earth, forests, oceans, cities, and then animals. The display zoomed in on various predators: lions, tigers, wolves. Each image was accompanied by technical analysis that made these creatures look almost pathetic. "Observe," Hyun-Ki continued, "the so-called predators of Earth. Primitive killing machines with no advanced technological support. Look at their inefficient biological systems. A tiger, for instance, requires massive amounts of energy, has limited range, and can be easily defeated by even basic defensive technologies." David Park stood perfectly still. His face remained neutral, but those who knew him, particularly his fellow Marines, would have recognized the slight tension in his jaw. He was listening, and he was remembering. The alien delegates began to laugh. It was a strange sound. Some produced high-pitched electronic squeals, others rumbled like distant machinery, and a few made clicking sounds that echoed through the translation systems. "These humans," whispered a delegate that looked like a collection of interconnected geometric shapes, "they believe these furry creatures are weapons." Another delegate, resembling a cloud of shifting purple particles, responded with a burst of what seemed like electronic mockery. Hyun-Ki continued his presentation. Charts and graphs appeared, showing comparative data between Earth's predators and the advanced combat units used by the Galactic Confederation. Every statistic seemed to prove how useless Earth's natural hunters were. "They're tigers," Hyun-Ki said, zooming in on an image of a Bengal tiger walking through tall grass, "are nothing more than inefficient biological constructs. Watch how much energy they consume. Look at their limited hunting range. Compare this to our quantum-powered combat drones that can operate across multiple planetary systems." More laughter filled the hall. It was a sound of pure technological arrogance. David Park remained silent, but something was brewing behind his calm exterior. Years of military training, years of understanding predators, not just as animals, but as perfect killing machines developed by millions of years of evolution, were forming in his mind. The presentation continued. More mockery, more charts, more dismissal of humanity's potential. What the alien delegates didn't know was that David Park was not just listening. He was planning. And in the world of military strategy, a quiet Marine thinking is often more dangerous than 1,000 shouting soldiers. As the presentation concluded, Hyun-Ki looked directly at the human delegation. His energy-based form pulsed with a sense of victory and superiority. "Do you have any comments?" he asked, the translation device making his tone sound almost playful. David Park took a single step forward, just one step. But in that moment, everything was about to change. The diplomatic reception hall buzzed with nervous energy. After the presentation, most human delegates looked defeated, their shoulders slumped under the weight of alien mockery. Not David Park. He stood near the edge of the room, his posture straight, eyes scanning the alien delegates like a predator himself. Ambassador Hyun-ki approached the human delegation, his energy-based form shifting with what could only be described as smug satisfaction. "I trust our presentation was clear," he said, the translation device making his voice sound smooth and cold. "Your planet's biological systems are primitive at best." Captain Rachel Kim, the lead diplomat, started to formulate a polite response. But before she could speak, David Park stepped forward. "May I ask a question?" he said quietly. The room went silent. Even the mechanical translation devices seemed to pause. Hyun-ki turned, surprised by the direct challenge. "Proceed," he responded, his energy form flickering with curiosity. David pulled up a holographic display. It showed a series of images. Tigers hunting, moving through different terrains, tracking prey. The images were clinical, almost scientific in their precision. "You say our predators are inefficient," David began. His voice was calm, but there was an underlying steel that made several alien delegates shift uncomfortably. But efficiency isn't just about energy consumption or technological complexity. He zoomed in on a tiger's eye. The image was sharp, showing every detail: the intelligence, the calculation, the pure hunting instinct. "A tiger doesn't just hunt," David continued. "It thinks, it plans, it adapts." One of the alien delegates, a crystalline being that looked like a walking cluster of diamonds, interrupted. "Adaptation is what our computational systems do," it said, "but with perfect logic. Your animals rely on instinct." David smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something the others did not. "Instinct," he said, "is the result of millions of years of perfect problem-solving. Every movement, every calculation a tiger makes is the result of countless generations of survival." He switched the holographic display. Now it showed statistical comparisons, not just biological data, but hunting success rates, energy efficiency, adaptability to different environments. "Our tigers," David explained, "can hunt in snow, in jungle, in grasslands. They can track prey across kilometers. They can take down animals much larger than themselves. And they do this with a brain the size of a small computer, using nothing but biological programming." Hyun-ki's energy form pulsed. "A interesting presentation," he said, "but words are cheap. Can you prove the superiority of your so-called biological predators?" The challenge hung in the air. The entire room, filled with beings from across the galaxy, waited. David Park looked directly at Hyun-ki. "I can do more than prove it," he said. "I can demonstrate it." A murmur ran through the alien delegates. Some seemed excited. Others looked skeptical. But none could ignore the quiet confidence in David's voice. "I challenge your technological superiority," David continued. "I propose a controlled simulation. We'll demonstrate exactly what Earth's predators can do." Captain Rachel Kim looked surprised. This was not part of their diplomatic strategy. But she also knew David Park. If he was making this challenge, he had a plan. Hyun-ki's energy form sparked with what might have been anger or excitement. "A simulation?" he asked. "With what parameters?" "Tactical combat scenario," David responded, "using the hunting and survival techniques of Earth's top predators, specifically tigers." The room went completely silent. Alien delegates looked at each other. Some communication devices flickered. Others seemed to be making rapid calculations. Hyun-ki's response would change everything. And everyone in the room knew it. "We accept your challenge," the ambassador finally said. The game had just begun. The demonstration arena was unlike anything humans had seen before. Massive holographic walls created a perfect environmental simulation, capable of generating any terrain, any condition, any challenge. Alien scientists and military experts gathered in observation decks that circled the arena like hungry vultures. David Park stood at the center, dressed in standard marine tactical gear. Beside him was a collection of equipment that looked almost laughably simple compared to the advanced alien technology surrounding them. A few high-resolution cameras, some tracking devices, a tablet computer, and a series of detailed holographic models that showed tiger hunting behaviors. "We will demonstrate 3 core principles," David announced to the observation deck. His voice was clear and steady, cutting through the background hum of alien translation devices: predatory intelligence, adaptive hunting, and survival strategy. The first challenge would focus on terrain adaptation. The holographic walls began to shift, creating a complex landscape. One moment it was a snow-covered mountain range. The next, a dense tropical jungle. Then a dry, rocky desert. Each environment changed in seconds, with temperature and atmospheric conditions shifting just as quickly. Most combat systems, David explained, rely on pre-programmed responses. They have set algorithms for specific environments. But a predator, a tiger, adapts in real time. He pulled up a series of holographic models. Each showed a tiger moving through different terrains. In the snow, its fur changed color. In the jungle, it used shadow and vegetation for cover. In the desert, it adjusted its movement to conserve energy. The alien delegates whispered among themselves. Their translation devices created a background noise that sounded like a mix of electronic chirps and mechanical clicks. "Watch carefully," David said. A holographic tiger materialized in the arena. But this was no simple computer model. It was a detailed simulation based on years of biological research, military tracking studies, and advanced behavioral analysis. The terrain changed rapidly. Snow, jungle, desert, mountain. The tiger moved with shocking precision. When snow covered the ground, it became almost invisible. In the jungle, it used vegetation as cover. In the desert, it moved slowly, conserving energy. In the mountains, it selected paths that minimized energy expenditure while maximizing hunting potential. "Your combat drones," David explained, would recalculate for each environment. They would use massive computational power to determine the best path. A tiger does this instinctively, in milliseconds. To demonstrate, he projected 2 side-by-side simulations. On one side, an advanced alien combat drone. On the other, the tiger simulation. As environments change, the drone would pause, recalculate, adjust. The tiger moved seamlessly, without hesitation. "Predatory intelligence is not about raw computational power," David continued. "It's about adaptive thinking, quick decision-making, understanding the environment at a fundamental level." Ambassador Hyun Ki, watching from the observation deck, felt something he had not experienced in centuries of galactic exploration: doubt. The simulation continued. The tiger demonstrated hunting techniques that defied standard combat logic. It did not just move toward a target. It anticipated. It planned. It used the environment as a weapon. When the first demonstration concluded, a strange silence filled the arena. The alien delegates looked at each other. Their communication devices flickered with rapid data exchanges. David Park stood completely still. He knew what was coming next would be even more surprising. That, he said quietly, was just the beginning. The observation deck fell silent. Something fundamental was about to change in their understanding of warfare, of intelligence, of survival itself. And it would all start with a tiger. The arena went dark. When the lights came back on, David Park had changed. Gone was the simple Marine uniform. Now he stood next to a collection of technological equipment that looked both familiar and completely alien. "Biological warfare is not about replacement," David announced. "It's about enhancement." A team of human scientists rolled forward a device that looked like a cross between a medical scanner and a military exosuit. It was sleek, compact, but with an organic quality that made the alien delegates lean forward in curiosity. David began to explain the Apex project. It was simple in concept, but revolutionary in execution. They were going to merge the perfect hunting capabilities of tigers with human intelligence and advanced technology. The holographic display showed the inner workings of what would become the first tiger unit, biomechanical muscles that mimicked the exact movement patterns of a tiger, neural interfaces that could process information faster than any computer, adaptive camouflage that could change not just color, but texture and shape. Your combat systems are rigid, David said. They follow programmed paths. Our design will think like a predator, move like a predator, but with human strategic intelligence. A senior alien scientist, a being made of interconnected light particles, interrupted. Impossible, it said. The translation device made the word sound like a mechanical laugh. David smiled. It was not a warm smile. The first prototype began to take shape. It looked almost like a suit at first, but as the holographic display zoomed in, everyone could see it was much more. Organic and mechanical parts blended in ways that defied traditional understanding of technology. The neural interface was particularly impressive. It could process environmental data faster than any known system. Temperature changes, wind patterns, ground composition, all analyzed in microseconds, just like a tiger's brain would do in the wild. We're not just copying tiger behavior, David explained. We're understanding it, analyzing millions of years of evolutionary perfection. The alien delegates began to look worried. Some of their communication devices started to spark and flutter. Information was being exchanged rapidly. The Apex 1 prototype began to move, first slowly, then with increasing speed and precision. It could switch between bipedal and quadrupedal movement in milliseconds. Its skin could change from solid to adaptive camouflage faster than the eye could track. Traditional combat units have limitations, David continued. They are designed for specific environments. Our Tiger units will adapt. Instantly. Completely. A demonstration began. The Apex 1 moved through a series of increasingly complex environments. Snow, jungle, urban landscape, desert. Each time, it adapted perfectly. Not just moving through the environment, but becoming part of it. Ambassador Hyun-ki watched from the observation deck. His energy-based form began to pulse with what might have been fear, or excitement, or both. The final part of the demonstration was the most shocking. The Apex 1 was presented with a complex tactical scenario, multiple targets, changing terrain, limited resources, the kind of challenge that would break most combat systems. It solved the scenario in seconds, not by brute force, but by thinking like a predator, understanding the environment, predicting movement, using the terrain as a weapon. This is not just a weapon, David said quietly. This is a new form of intelligence. The arena went silent. The alien delegates looked at each other. Something fundamental had changed. The age of biological warfare had begun, and it started with a tiger. The testing facility looked like nothing special from the outside. A simple building in the Nevada desert, surrounded by miles of empty land. But inside, something extraordinary was about to happen. Apex 1 stood motionless in the center of a massive circular testing arena. From a distance, it might have looked like a high-tech suit of armor, but anyone watching closely would see something different. This was no ordinary machine. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the lead scientist, checked her final calculations. Her hands moved quickly over holographic displays, her eyes never leaving the prototype. "System check," she called out. A team of technicians began running diagnostic tests. Each system was checked and double-checked. The neural interface, the biomechanical muscles, the adaptive camouflage. Everything needed to be perfect. David Park watched from the observation deck. He had seen the early designs, had been part of the initial concept. But this was different. This was the moment of truth. Initiating first full capability test, the lead technician announced. The arena began to change. Holographic projections created multiple environments simultaneously. A dense jungle materialized on one side, an Arctic landscape on another, A rocky desert spread across the third section. Urban terrain filled the fourth. Apex One didn't move. Not yet. Begin environmental stress test, Dr. Rodriguez commanded. The environment started to change. Temperature dropped and rose. Wind patterns shifted. Terrain became unstable. Holographic threats appeared and disappeared. The kind of unpredictable scenarios that would break most combat systems. Apex One moved. It was not like watching a robot. It was like watching a living predator. The Proxima Centauri conflict started like most galactic disputes, with a small misunderstanding that quickly spiraled out of control. The Galactic Confederation had been fighting the Razor Swarm, a mechanical race of interconnected battle units, for control of a resource-rich star system. No one expected humans to get involved. The first Tiger unit, Apex One, dropped into the combat zone without warning. From space, it looked like a small meteor entering the planet's atmosphere. But as it descended, something changed. The unit broke apart mid-descent, its adaptive camouflage shifting to match the rocky terrain below. By the time it touched ground, it was almost invisible. Communication logs from the Galactic Confederation's battle network would later show complete confusion. Their advanced tracking systems couldn't get a lock on the new combatant. Unknown unit detected. A mechanical voice reported. Classification impossible. Apex One moved like liquid shadow across the rocky landscape. The planet was a nightmare of sharp rocks, toxic atmosphere, and constant electrical storms. Perfect hunting ground for a predator. The Razor Swarm's first wave approached. Hundreds of interconnected battle units that moved like a single organism. Each unit was a marvel of technological engineering. They had defeated entire planetary defenses. They were considered unbeatable. They did not know about tigers. Apex One didn't attack the main group. Instead, it targeted the communication nodes. Precise strikes that disabled the swarm's ability to coordinate. One moment, a communication tower stood. The next, it was gone. No explosion. No visible damage. Just gone. The battle logs would later show something impossible. The Tiger unit was hunting, not fighting. Hunting. It moved between the rocky formations, using the terrain like a living predator, each movement calculated, each strike precise. The Razor Swarm's computational systems couldn't predict its next move because there was no pattern to predict. Multiple units compromised. The mechanical communication system reported, but it sounded confused, uncertain. More Tiger units dropped, not as a military formation, but like a pack of predators, each moving independently, each working as part of a larger system, understanding each other without words, without direct communication. The Razor Swarm began to break apart. Their perfect interconnected system was being dismantled piece by piece. Galactic Confederation observers watched in shock. Their advanced battle computers couldn't understand what was happening. The Tiger units weren't following any known combat strategy. They were hunting. Pure and simple. One Tiger unit would draw attention. Another would strike from a completely unexpected angle. They moved like liquid, like shadows, like predators. By the time the first hour of combat concluded, the Razor Swarm had lost 70% of its fighting capacity, not destroyed, not blown up, just neutralized. The communication logs captured one final, confused transmission. Threat Celicification impossible. Combat PATTRN. UNDFINET. Ambassador Hyunki watched the battle reports in disbelief. The human delegation sat quietly. David Park allowed himself a small smile. Predators, he said quietly, don't follow rules. They create them. The Proxima Centauri conflict was over, and the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had arrived, not with a technological marvel, not with massive battleships or advanced weapons, but with something far more dangerous. A predator's intelligence. The emergency conference hall of the Galactic Confederation was unlike any meeting space humans had seen before. Holographic walls shifted like liquid light. Delegates from 1,000 different worlds sat in seats that seemed to breathe and move with their occupants. Ambassador Yunki stood at the center, his energy-based form pulsing with a mix of anger and confusion. The Proxima Centauri report played behind him, a brutal replay of how a small human team had completely destroyed the Razor Swarm's most advanced battle units. "Explain," he demanded, looking directly at the human delegation. David Park stepped forward. He was dressed in a simple marine uniform, no advanced technology, no special gear, just a human in a plain military outfit. "Predatory intelligence," he said simply. The entire hall went silent. Thousands of alien delegates looked confused. Their translation devices created a background hum of electronic whispers. Dr. Elena Rodriguez joined David. She carried a simple tablet computer, technology that looked almost primitive compared to the advanced holographic displays surrounding her. "Evolution," she began, "is the most advanced design system in the universe." She pulled up a holographic display. It showed the development of predators on Earth. Tigers, wolves, eagles. Each image demonstrated how these creatures had developed perfect hunting systems over millions of years. "Your technological systems," David continued, "calculate. They process. They follow rules. Predators create rules." The tablet in Elena's hand showed data from the Proxima Centauri conflict. The Tiger units hadn't just fought. They had hunted. They had adapted. They had thought like living creatures, not like machines. Ambassador Yunki's energy form flickered. "This is impossible," he said, but even he didn't sound convinced anymore. The holographic display changed. Now it showed the Tiger units in action, not as weapons, but as living, thinking systems. Each unit moved independently, but they worked together like a perfect pack of hunters. "We didn't create a weapon," Elena explained. "We created a new form of intelligence." More images appeared. The Tiger units solving complex problems, adapting to impossible environments, making decisions faster than any computer, but with a biological intelligence that felt almost alive. "Your combat systems have a fatal flaw," David said. "They think like machines. Predators think like survivors." The alien delegates started to communicate among themselves. Their devices created a sound like electronic wind. Information was being exchanged faster than human minds could process. Elena showed the final piece of evidence. The complete battle report from Proxima Centauri. How a small number of Tiger units had defeated an entire mechanical army, not through brute force, but through perfect hunting strategy. "This is just the beginning," David said quietly. Ambassador Hyunki's energy form seemed to collapse slightly. Something fundamental had changed. The entire understanding of combat, of intelligence, of survival itself. "We want to talk," he said finally. David Park allowed himself a small smile. "About what?" he asked. "Everything," the ambassador responded. The hall went silent. Thousands of alien delegates looked at the small human delegation. They saw something they had never seen before. Not a weapon, not a technology, but a predator. 5 years after the Proxima Centauri incident, the galaxy looked very different. Diplomatic stations that once mocked humanity now sought their counsel. The small blue planet that was once considered a backwater had become the most important strategic partner in galactic politics. David Park sat in a massive conference room that stretched across 3 different environmental zones. On one side, a tropical landscape. On another, an Arctic terrain. The third section simulated a rocky alien world. It was a meeting space designed to show adaptability, something humans had become famous for. Ambassador Hyunki entered, but he was different now. No longer a pure energy being, he had adapted. Part biological, part technological, he moved with a fluidity that spoke of true evolution. "We need to discuss the next phase," Hyunki said. David nodded. The Tiger units had changed everything. What started as a military project was now a blueprint for galactic cooperation. Biological intelligence had become the most valuable resource in the universe. Earth's research centers were now the most important institutions in known space. Scientists from 1,000 worlds came to study how humans understood adaptation, how they could turn survival into an art form. The conference room's holographic displays showed multiple conflict zones, places where traditional technological solutions had failed, places that needed a different approach. The Meridian cluster is falling apart, Hyun-Ki explained. 4 different species, 3 ongoing conflicts, hundreds of years of technological warfare. David pulled up a new holographic model. It showed a series of Tiger unit prototypes. But these were different, not just biomechanical warriors. Diplomatic units, problem-solving units, units designed to understand, not just fight. Predatory intelligence is not about destruction, David said. It's about solving problems. The holographic display changed. It showed how the Tiger units had been used in diplomatic missions, resolving conflicts on multiple planets, understanding complex social systems the way a predator understands an ecosystem. Hyun-Ki's modified body pulsed with a mix of excitement and respect. You didn't just create a weapon, he said. You created a new way of thinking. More images appeared. Tiger units helping to rebuild ecosystems, solving agricultural challenges, mediating conflicts between species that had been fighting for centuries. Not through force, but through understanding. Adaptation is survival, David explained. And survival is more than just fighting. It's solving problems. It's understanding. The conference room's environmental zones began to shift. Each section demonstrated a different challenge. A dying ecosystem, a planet with failing infrastructure, a society torn by internal conflicts. In each scenario, a Tiger unit prototype showed how biological intelligence could solve problems that technology could not. We're not just a military power anymore, David said. We're problem solvers. Hyun-Ki looked at the displays. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had changed it, not through massive weapons, not through advanced technology, but through understanding. The next stage, Hyun-Ki said, requires something different. David nodded. Cooperation, he responded. The conference room went silent. Outside, through massive windows, alien ships moved across a star-filled sky, each one a testament to how far they had come, how much they had learned. From a simple tiger, from a planet once considered insignificant, humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. The memorial stood on a small hill overlooking the Pacific Ocean. It was simple, a statue of a tiger, a Marine in tactical gear. Nothing more. David Park stood before it, older now. His hair gray, but his eyes still sharp. Behind him, the world had changed. Earth was no longer just a planet. It was a galactic hub, a center of innovation, a place where biological intelligence had become the most important resource in the universe. Young cadets from a dozen different alien species stood in formation. They were learning, not just military tactics, but something deeper, the art of adaptation, the science of survival. Dr. Elena Rodriguez approached. She walked with a cane now, but her mind was as sharp as ever. They're ready for the final lesson, she said. David nodded. The cadets gathered. Humans. Alien species that looked nothing like humans, but all of them shared one thing: a deep respect for the lessons learned from Earth's predators. Survival is not about strength, David began. His voice carried across the memorial ground. It's about adaptation. He pulled up a holographic display, images of tigers, of Earth's most successful predators, but also images of human problem-solving, of how a small planet had changed everything. Your technological systems, he explained, try to control everything, predict everything. But life doesn't work that way. The holographic display showed the history of the Tiger units, how they started, how they changed everything, not just in military strategy, but in understanding life itself. A tiger doesn't fight the environment, David continued. It becomes part of it. It adapts. It solves problems. Young cadets from crystal-based species, energy beings, mechanical life forms, they all listened. Their communication devices created a soft background hum of translation and understanding. Elena stepped forward. Evolution is the most advanced design system in the universe, she said, the same words she had spoken years ago. The words that had changed everything. More images appeared. The first Tiger units, the Proxima Centauri conflict, the diplomatic missions that followed. How biological intelligence had solved problems that technology could not. We're not just teaching you how to fight, David said. We're teaching you how to survive. The memorial behind them seemed to come alive. The statue of the tiger, the marine. Symbols of something much larger than a single conflict, a way of thinking, an approach to life itself. Predators don't just survive, David explained. They understand. They adapt. They solve. The cadets stood perfectly still, but their communication devices showed something happening. They were learning, not just listening. Understanding. Elena pulled up one final display. It showed the galaxy, not as a place of conflict, but as a complex ecosystem, where every species had a role, where survival meant cooperation. Understanding. This is your lesson, she said quietly. Not about war, about life. The sun began to set. The Pacific Ocean stretched out behind the memorial, a symbol of Earth's own adaptability, its ability to contain multiple ecosystems, to support life in all its complexity. David looked at the young cadets, humans and aliens alike. They represented something new, a future where survival was not about fighting, but about understanding. Remember, he said, a predator's greatest weapon is not its strength, it's its ability to understand. The memorial stood silent, but it spoke volumes about a small planet, about a simple idea, that life is about adaptation, and survival is an art.